I've been wanting to make this video for so long. I've been prolonging it because I'm still in my language learning journey, and I'm obviously realizing now that I probably will never get to the point where I'll feel 100% ready to fully talk about this. But there's a lot of things that I've wanted to say. I'm learning Spanish. I think I've talked about that. I mean, obviously I review Spanish memes, and sometimes I speak Spanish in videos. I mean, I considered making this video in Spanish. There's just a lot. I have found language learning really fun, and I've learned so much about myself. What the heck? My alarm is going off. I've learned so much about myself in this journey. So for me, just some background information. I'd never learned a language. I've only known English. I did take a language in high school, which was Spanish. You have to take 2 years of Spanish here in California. But I ended up taking 4 years of Spanish, forgot everything, went to and worked in a restaurant before I started my YouTube channel. I worked there for 5 years. I learned a little bit of Spanish at the restaurant, just being able to actually speak it. But anyways, I've always wanted to learn just Spanish. It's always been on my bucket list, and like literally learn it. And when I'm talking learn it, I'm talking like 100%. I heard that, if you're not a native speaker, that trying to get to 100% is basically stupid. Like, it's not worth it. Getting to 90% is, not 80 to 90% is pretty good, and that's the best you can strive for, because you need like 10 years to get to like 100%. But it bothers me. I have so much to say here. It bothers me because everyone kind of like has different ways that they have gone about learning a language. Like, when you ask one person how long they've been learning a certain language, that doesn't necessarily show you the progress that they've made. So it kind of just depends on where it kind of depends on how much you're really putting into it. But before I jump into that, I just want to say, like, one thing that I've liked about this, and I know a lot of Americans, I was just reviewing a video about how a lot of Americans really just know English for the most part. Not all, of course, but a majority of them are just English speakers. But I think there's a lot of value in learning another language. It doesn't have to be Spanish. It could be French. It could be literally anything. If your family has history with like Dutch or Tagalog if you're from the Philippines, or Hindi from India, learning a language is really cool because you learn so much about. If you only know one language, it's kind of mind blowing a little bit in a way. At least I have found it mind blowing to see the way languages are constructed, to see certain phrases and similarities between each language, and I'm sure it only gets better as you learn more. I would love to learn French one day, but I don't want it to hinder my progress in Spanish, so I'm not really there yet, and I have a feeling that it's going to take me years before I'm at the point where I feel comfortable taking on a third language. I mean, every time those polyglots, well, I don't know, polyglots are in like a different level, but I've heard polyglots say don't try to learn 2 languages at the same time. Even though I feel really comfortable with Spanish, I don't think I'm ready to mix in a third language. I think that would throw me completely off. They might be referring to the fact that, like, if you're just starting off really fresh in a language, don't try to put in 1, 2, 3 languages. But I think it's going to take me years before I feel comfortable even beginning to dabble in French. But man, you learn so much about like the origin of your native language when you start learning other languages, especially when it comes to French. I'm assuming, dude, just like looking at French colors and French numbers, it's like, oh, I didn't know that was a French word. Like, oh, I knew that. Like noir, isn't that black in French? Anyways, like little small realizations in that. Or I mean, I always talk about it, the similarities between Spanish and Arabic. I think that stuff's super fascinating. The Spanish word for alberca, you can really, there's a bunch of words in Spanish that use al in front of it. I mean, that like directly has a Arabic origin. I guess al means the. So any Spanish word that starts with al is going to alfombra. I see. Some people make fun of my Spanish, especially with my accent, because when I speak on a video, I try to speak extremely American, very clear. So when I try to say Spanish words, it's hard for me to spin into that, get back into the accent. But Anyways, I've found it to be really valuable, and it's not for everybody, and it is extremely hard. And one thing that I love about it is I learned how I like to learn myself. I'm the type of person where you got to pound things into my brain. For reference, like at this point, I'm at the routine where when it's during my work week, when I make videos, I call that my work week. I work Monday through Friday. When it's during my work week, I wake up, I turn on Spanish news every day, and there's constantly Spanish in my house, no matter what. Sometimes I go, weekends, a couple days. If I'm on a weekend or a vacation, I'll go without, practicing much. But during those weekdays, it's 8 hours a day. I don't watch a whole lot of TV, so it's just always on. So that's the level that that's how I'm learning, and that's how I like to learn. But I run into other people that are much more book smart than I am, or they're much better at like being able to read textbooks, or the best way they learn is by, it's usually a reading thing. Like I'm not a big reader, or they learn better in a classroom setting. I do also take a class every Wednesday. I've been doing that for about a year or more of Spanish, and a lot of the people that I run into there, they learn a lot better in a classroom setting. Whereas like, no, that stuff doesn't really sit that well with me. Like I can't sit here and do like flashcards. And this is the same thing. Sorry, I'm like clearing my voice so much today. My voice is like really messed up. But I am not like a memorization dude. Like it needs to be just cemented in the core of my cortex. I don't even know what I'm talking about here. For me to learn like history facts, or for me to learn literally anything when it comes to YouTube stuff, algorithm stuff, this is basically what I've done with my own YouTube channel. I've been doing this for 11 years. It wasn't like I'm like taking a university class and I just sit in a classroom setting to learn things. And this is probably a deeper thing why I dropped out of university twice, is because that's just not how I learn. And I didn't enjoy high school. It's weird. Actually, I should take that back. I enjoyed social events in high school. I enjoyed friends and sports in high school. But in the actual classroom doing homework, hated that. And also hated that part of university. I went to a commuter school, so I didn't get to see the other side of university when you get to actually meet people and have experiences and do all that. I was literally just community school and going back home. So it was literally just the education side of university. So I hated it. And that's why I dropped out 2 times. But it wasn't until I actually started learning a language where it's like, oh, I do not like to learn by reading or in a classroom setting. I like real life experiences, which is why I travel to a lot of Spanish speaking countries. I need to be able to speak to people in real life and to be able to form, how to just have dialogue. That was the fastest way I was able to learn, is just to find someone that, like a native speaker, and boom, let's just start talking. And man, it's awkward, man. It's awkward because I am not the type of person that likes awkward silences. Like in English, I try not, I feel obviously very comfortable with my native language. I'm very I like to think that I'm good at keeping the conversation rolling in English. But man, in Spanish, when you're learning that language, you don't know a lot of words to say. So it was really tough for me. But I think what helped is I wasn't afraid to look like an idiot. And that was really good because obviously I've talked about this. I look like an idiot in my videos all the time. I can go back to a video from 2 years ago to a month ago, and it's like, oh, I'll say something that I'm like, oh, that was kind of dumb. I got all these alarms going off. I got all these alarms. It's like, oh, that was kind of a dumb thing for me to say or something, but whatever. That's okay. That helped me in my language journey. And I know other people, when they're learning other languages, they struggle with that. They might be more of the classroom learners. A lot of my friends are. A lot of girls are, I've noticed in my own personal life. They're very good at university, learning at the university level. A lot of girls I know just got their degree, and a lot of guys I know did not get their degree. So maybe that's what it comes down to. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the classroom sort of people, or the book way, quote unquote book. It doesn't necessarily mean a book, but a lot of the book way people are afraid to look dumb. Whereas oh yeah, I mean, that's how I learn, man. Those cringe moments when you're learning the language for the first time and you make an unbelievable mistake, that sits with you. But man, you never make that mistake again. And that's just how I've been able to do it. So that's a big thing. I mean, I can only really teach other people. I know everyone's going to ask me about Duolingo. I don't think it worked for me at all. I tried it in the very beginning. Before I can really say I started my Spanish journey, I was doing Duolingo like a year before that. And I did that for like a couple months there. I didn't retain nothing. It wasn't until I started having real conversations that I actually started getting things. And also traveling to Spanish-speaking countries. That was big. Or if I meet someone, like I was in Las Vegas this weekend, and I just happened to run into someone from Costa Rica. Boom! That's a perfect excuse to be like, let's go. I was just in Costa Rica. Let's start speaking Spanish. So anyways, every opportunity you get, I think, is a good way to learn. Again, this can be applied to French, Hindi, Italian, whatever you want to learn. Just to use every opportunity you get. Listen as much as possible. It's very, I'm a very like routine person. So I knew that like, I was going to get better whether I wanted to or not if I just included it in my routine. If I, switched my phone to Spanish, which I did. If you turn all your apps to a certain language, you can't help but run away. You're always gonna be in front of it. You're always gonna be faced to deal with it. Same thing with if like I in the radio, like even when it comes to radio. See, a lot of people, a lot of Californians, they don't necessarily want to learn Spanish, or a lot of Americans, because it's the most prominent language. That's exactly why I wanted to learn Spanish. But it was also a lot easier for me. So I think if you're an American that wants to learn like Italian or German, it's going to be a little harder because it's a little bit harder to find those resources. But, you can go out your way and do it. I guess the point of this video is just like, it's really introspective. You really do a lot of introspection on yourself and how you work and how you learn and how you do things. When you're really dedicated to learning something completely new like this. And it's really hard for me sometimes because like I'll find somebody that definitely is way further in their journey. It doesn't have to be in Spanish. It can be in another language, and they spent the same amount of time in the other language as I have, and they're like to me they seem way further off. But you can't judge yourself that way. You kind of just gotta be like, oh, that's cool, but continue on your own pace. And you know what? The truth is that in reality, those people that it might seem better, that have put the same amount of time and dedication that you have in a certain language, it might seem like they're better, but in reality, they might just be better in certain categories. They might not be as good at reading and writing the language, or they might not be as good as in certain topics, certain word categories of a language. I've noticed that all the time. Like there's definitely a lady that seems really good at, she's really good at grammar that I've met. That's also like me, just learning Spanish. Really good at grammar. But when it comes to just conversational fluidity, just being able to have a boom conversation right here, that's where she's struggling. But I struggle with grammar, man. I don't know. Dang, you ask me grammar stuff. That gets really complicated for me, all that stuff. But anyways, long-winded conversation. I feel like I've talked about this many times before in other videos, but you just learn a lot about yourself. So I definitely recommend it for people if you really want to learn, because it does take a lot of dedication. But if you really want to learn, you learn a lot about yourself. So that is a fun part.